Hello everyone, this is Mix Awesome Manatee. There is a specter haunting the internet. Some tech bros have come up with technology where AI can create both stories and pictures. And for the boomers in the group, it's basically a computer doing writing, art, and now animation too. In other words, computers can create art now. Many who are looking to cut costs, including corporate interests, they're looking to cut costs in the midst of growing militant labor. And they're looking to AI as the future of content creation. A question weighs on all the industry into a pool of darkness. Will AI replace human artists? There are definitely reasons for using it, and I will go over them and my thoughts and opinions. Reason number one, I'm not an artist and I'm broke. Admittedly, artists have gatekept this practice for a long time. I mean, okay, not really. It's available, it's out there. Are there some that get a little dickish about it? Absolutely, but it's out there for you to go. But for the artists that do try to gatekeep art, come on guys, did we really not learn a lesson about gatekeeping? Like seriously, did we not have a worldwide catastrophe that may or may not been the result of an artist getting rejected from an artistic institution? But in all seriousness, art has been gatekept for the longest time by certain people, and still is to an extent, which creates a rift between creatives and non-creatives. Here's the honest to goodness truth about art. Art is a means of communication. That's how it started, and that's how it still is. When dialogue and memory proved unreliable, using recorded history via the game of telephone is probably not the most efficient way of keeping information. However, some thought that painting on the cave walls would communicate what kind of animals would be in the area, the fact that people lived within the area, and that extended further. Art was a means of keeping and recording information, which later became ways of expressing ideas. Religion and mythology were some of the first high concepts that ascended humanity. Later on, this art is used to record how much rations laborers get paid in the form of beer in ancient Egypt and Samaria. Some of this art later became a color banner so that soldiers know which guy to swing an axe at, because it's going to get real confusing if there's no way to tell each other apart. Thus you get flags, tabards, coat of arms, which became status symbols later on. This art and literature express ideas of morality and grandeur. Just visit Rome or any mosque to see that. Even Buddhist temples carry the face of tradition with them as they bring their ideas to other parts of the world. What I'm trying to say is that art is not this monolithic, unattainable status to reach. All forms of communication could be argued as art. Is your shitposting on Twitter or Reddit anything comparable to the Sistine Chapel? Probably not, but just give Chaucer or Oscar Wilde a Twitter and see where that goes. If you think that the Roman Empire is immune to this level of shitposting, not even the Romans were above crass messages to one another.
Watch it, you that shits in this place. May you have Jove's anger if you ignore this.
Art, again, is a means of communication. If whatever you draw, write, or display concocts the message to whoever you're sending it to, it's art. Now, a painting is a form of art and is considered a classical piece of art along with statues, books. We have this image of what art is supposed to be. Art museums that define to you what art is, art institutions that try to dictate to you what art is, and now you have artists lashing out against AI for impeding on grounds that were already unstable. But understand it from their perspective. Art is already a difficult sell for many people. Many people want the art, but they don't want to pay for the art. They have no problems forking money over to companies like Disney, Universal, Viacom, and your established institutions of art, those who get to dictate what art is because they regularly do it. But go downtown and you see an art festival, and how many of those are actually bought? There are thriving art communities throughout the internet that cater to many niches or interests, but while the communities thrive, its members do not. Every day, new members join with more money than talent, or more talent than money. It does keep alive thanks to the internet, but with AI now impeding on this, the opportunity of the artist continues to shrink, more than it's already been before. The reality is that many do not have the means to pay the artist properly as they should. But now with AI, you're shrinking the number of people who could potentially benefit these artists, which will now shrink thanks to the industry being encroached by AI. On top of that, another factor is that corporations are seeing this trend. If you're familiar with an industry giant like Disney, they're not fans of unions.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive.
So they're not being
and
realistic?
dangerous. No, they're not.
And still aren't to this day. But now they're starting to find a workaround. Corporations are now looking to undermine their own artists by using AI as a shortcut, or even worse, a replacement. However, will it work? Yes and no. Yes, the corporations could absolutely get away with having AI replace workers. For those saying AI isn't there already, the amount of users using AI for the free or minimal fees are developing it as we speak. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If we're not there already, we're gonna be soon. However, there's a difference between going through the motions and the motions of having a motivation. Every story, art piece, or whatever you see has a technical know-how behind it. Yes, even storytelling. If that wasn't the case, Joseph Campbell wouldn't have been able to pioneer the hero's journey based on mythologies around the world. So even writing isn't immune from technical knowledge. But there's a difference between somebody who's just copying what works and somebody who has a message to tell. I'll use the sequel trilogy of Star Wars as an example. Nowhere near AI, but honestly it might as well have been. Episode 7, a competent and good movie, but was just retelling of A New Hope. I don't need to go into this. Episode 8, a competent movie focused on turning the concept of the Jedi on its head. Rey and the whole galaxy had one vision for the Jedi while Luke knew otherwise, and Rey's friends were chased across the galaxy while Rey was training in the Jedi way. Yeah, totally not Empire Strikes Back. Episode 9, a movie with a familiar big bad at the end that was written by every Reddit recommendation, and in order to copy the success of Avengers Endgame, they copied what they did as well, but this time instead of having one Death Star, they had several Death Stars. Rey and Kylo kiss, Rey is a Palpatine, Chewie gets a medal, very few are happy. The difference between George Lucas and Disney was just merely going through the motions. There was energy in the first movie. It was exciting to have Star Wars again. Both artists and audiences were happy to be reunited with such a nostalgic franchise after years of absence. The second movie still had potential, however, some decisions began to give the public a brief glimpse into what was really happening. While the wizard's screams look away from the curtains, pried further the public did. And by the time Rise of Skywalker came out, the fatigue set in for so many. Some were excited that they were getting another Star Wars, and honestly, who could blame them? However, there were disgruntled, bitter types like myself that treat it like a Thanksgiving dinner. Sure, the food will be good, I'll reunite with the family I do not like to see, but there's an elephant in the room that's just hard to ignore. Meanwhile, George Lucas, when he made Star Wars, had a message. Was it always planned? No. There were reports of multiple versions of the script, so I'm not going to completely deify George Lucas and say that he's always had this grand master plan, but he did have a rough plan regardless. Disney recycled Lucas's work and hoped that they could recreate that magic in the most cynical follow-through possible. Because Lucas wrote Star Wars, he was slated to direct Apocalypse Now, an anti-war film criticizing the United States' role in Vietnam. He didn't accept the offer, instead pushed for Star Wars, which was also a film that criticized the concept of imperialism, and how it affects the people and how people react to it. Call the prequels a cash grab, if you will. They definitely have that aspect, but while the original trilogy emphasizes that living in the present is essential for progress, the prequels state that the present should be motivated by the past. To move forth with blind idealism while ignoring the past won't be progressive either. But also, Lucas was also trying to answer the important question: what gives fascism steps to ascend to? How did normal people become monsters? What created Darth Vader, and what created the Empire? As important as opposing fascism is, knowing its roots is also just as important. Because we are habitual creatures and we will fall in ways that feel familiar, comforting at any cost. To know the past and present is important for the future, not to be leashed by the prejudices of the past nor blinded by the ignorance of today's youth. Again, Disney just tried to remake Star Wars because Star Wars was a recognizable brand name. George Lucas had a story to tell, and it shows. Again, if his writing was that bad, then why did Disney fork out over $4 billion for his work? So I say it like this. Sure, you can use AI, but if you don't know how to use the formula, it won't compensate for the lack of effort you put forth into the craft of communication. If you don't know how to paint, AI won't help you paint the Sistine Chapel. If you don't know how to write, AI won't help you with Write War and Peace. You need to have a story to tell and an ability to learn. If you rush it, it's going to show. You can enjoy your Hot Pocket, but don't be surprised if you bite into the Titanic's arch nemesis.